Hello and welcome to today's video. So on the workbench today I have the Interconnects and BMS wiring for my 150 volt 65 amp hour battery pack for my Solectria E10. This will be one of four, so I got to do this a few more times. I went ahead and I think the last video we covered cutting this up, the two pieces. I wanted to reuse all the safety covers, so here's all the extra pieces that are left over. And this was the result, and here it is. You can see this is the negative terminal, and it goes around like this through here, all in series, all the way across the bottom, all the way through here, around this way, and of course back to here, and that's the most positive terminal. You can also see I've got all of the BMS wiring completed. I actually did this side first, and I'm probably going to redo a little bit of it. I'll show you that in a second. So what I did is I removed all of the wires from both connectors and just kind of laid them out here on the desk and chose the shortest ones to accomplish their tasks to get where I needed to go. Problem is I ended up with a lot of loops like this where I've kind of just to eat up extra. They were too long for some of them, and so you can see I kind of loop it around. It's very inefficient, so that's why I think I'm going to redo it. Well, what happened is I used up all the short ones over here, right? So then I ended up with nothing but these super long cables. I mean, this is long enough to go the entire length because that's what they did in the original design. You can see it's, you know, really long, and I don't need them to be that long. So what I did is on the other side ended up cutting them up anyway, so I'll probably just go ahead and do that on the other side. And what I did is I just went and got them, cut them to the right length, and like you can kind of see, oh, if I can get it to focus. Don't focus on the reflection, focus here, there we go. You can see I just kind of soldered. I cut them and then soldered them back in. So I figured I'd put the solder joint right there. It's pretty protected and be better than having it like in the middle here and then having to heat shrink. Use heat shrink tubing, so that worked out okay. So this is all wired up, and like I said, I think I'll redo this whole section because I just got a lot of things, a lot of the wires are just floating around with loops in them. I don't want them picking up noise and stuff like that, so I think I'm going to go ahead and, despite all of this stuff I did earlier, I'll just cut them and actually solder them in like I did on the other side. Let's see, I guess I could show you this is the wiring that I ended up doing. So this left-hand side is the most negative, so that's this group here. So that's cells 96 through cells 77, so that should be 20 total cells. And then the right-hand side over here is the upper group here, so from cell 49 all the way to cell 68, and that should be 20 cells as well. They're all connected in series. I think in the previous video I might have mentioned that I was just going to have them all in a row, but then I ended up, I would have some wires crossing through here, which is okay, but it was just easier to have this whole side on this connector and this whole side on this connector. So what I'm going to do is we're going to bypass chips 6 and 7. So I'm using BMS chips 1 through 5 and 8 through 12. So 6 and 7 will get bypassed, and this little jumper right here is actually done right here through this. This is one copper bus bar that runs all the way across. And so I've got the one cell tap from the low group and one cell tap from the high group, and that's where I'm going to bridge the two together. Now of course I had to modify it because this isn't designed to have, you can notice they only have room to put one tap per bus bar. So you can see everywhere like there's not one there, but there's one on this side. So that required this side to have two of them. And so I actually notched these out so I could put that in there. And you can actually see that in a few places where I've cut holes in the bus bar, or not the bus bar, but the safety cover to allow wires to come through where they weren't there before. So yeah, you can see where I've cut holes here to allow that to pass through to pick up these two guys. But you know, you got to do what you got to do. I'm not too worried that this isn't actually connected very well. And that's just because when they get bolted in, the batteries themselves will actually hold all the interconnects in the correct location. So I'm not worried about that. Let's see, what else? Oh, should mention this too. If you notice, they're contiguous in their numbering. I get the focus here, so you know you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, they're all over the place. They count in some weird order. There's no rhyme or reason to their order. I'm sure it made their layout on the BMS easier, and that's why they're in just like a random order. But what you'll see is they don't restart for the second connector. So what I did is I've got my little cheat sheet here. So the one connector, everything is correct. So 1 is pin 1, pin 2 is pin 2. So here I've restarted it, reordered it. So 33 on their BMS pin, but LB7, the actual connector is pin 1, 34 is pin 2, so on and so forth, which makes it a lot easier to wire it when you have because these pin numbers are actually on the back of the connector and not their weird contiguous wiring that numbering that they decided to do, because they don't even, like, they go ahead and they do that for this too, which is really weird. I don't know. I don't know why they decided to change the thing halfway through like that. But anyways, you'll see that's the this is the wiring for these two connectors, which are that's this one and this one. But these are the actual wiring for the BMS unit, which I happen to have sitting right here. So there's actually another cable that translates that and plugs into these two connectors, because those don't directly plug in, and these are not a one-to-one mapping for the pinouts. So, but I have those cables because they were used on both. This cable does exist that connects the left-hand and right-hand packs to the BMS. So I'm going to definitely use that, because you can see I ended up with these at opposite ends, and so those two cables will allow me to bring both those together and then plug in the BMS somewhere in the middle. So that should work out pretty well. And then I think that's the only other thing. Well, you can see the ones that are checked off are the ones that I wired up. The ones with X's I didn't wire up, so you can see a few in those. Those are the cells that are not used or bypassed. And I think that is everything. So like I said, I think I'll go back and shorten up the wiring on this side so it matches the right-hand side. And everything will be good. Just got to bolt it onto the pack out in the garage, the actual modules, the cells themselves. But yeah, I think that's it. Gotta cut some. I have some M6 threaded rods that I'll need to cut. Probably gonna do that on the lathe, just because they're grade 8.8, which is the same as the bolts that they used, and that's gonna be really difficult to cut. I'm being told by my supervisor that I'm talking too long, and he has fallen asleep. So, in an odd position. Do we want to wake him up? No. Oh, he woke up. Anyways, yeah, this video has been too long, so thanks for watching. Bye.